It's a little updated. But how we adjust it, and I typically, forgive me if I'm going off script, that's basically, I never really read the slides. I did write them, and all the commentary will be just supporting what we have in the slides. So adapting to the new job market. Some of you have been here, have already experienced the feedback from the market, but as I updated my profile lately, I take immigration as a major startup, and you are that human capital that you bring to the market, then the market is your future. So this is basically you trying to make something new with yourself, a great career change opportunity. Think of job search as an opportunity to start something new. And I will have that starting a business as one of the tips that we can employ to close any gaps in the resume. So Canadian job market values clarity, conciseness, and relevance. If you have a resume right now, if you look at your resume, maybe now is a good time. And it's been an old format that you've used before. Maybe not a bad idea to just start from scratch and start writing it, not kind of keeping all the wordiness that was relevant for the job that you held 5 years ago. Maybe it's a good idea to start what you do now and then sort of fill the previous roles with more relevant to Canada descriptions of your functions, your achievements, and projects. So emphasis in Canada, emphasis on teamwork, humility, and communication. However, right at the start, I want to say, if you fluff your resume with words such as quick learner, team player, something of that nature, or detailed oriented, don't do it. It's just using the line in the resume that could be used for something else. It's fluff that every recruiter understands. They will ask you about your team playing. They will see that if you get the interview. So that goes without saying. You don't need to, like, nobody, no recruiter will select you out of the group of five short list, for example, if like, well, she wrote that she is a team play. They will feel it, they will know it at the interview level or stage when you get there. So career
Soft
gaps,
skills, because it's a soft skills.
correct. Yes,
Okay.
soft skills. You want to say, you want to demonstrate that, you want to demonstrate that differently without noting. It's like if you resume, and I'm taking this group of like you, the audience, as someone who has experience from back home, someone who needs to translate that experience to the current reality. You have the baggage. We'd have the tendency to cling to that baggage because it was valuable to us. We were important back there. We felt good back there. We made that jump towards the better future, towards more stable future. It may be different and challenging now, but believe me, I had like personally had never ever had regrets. And the stability that Canada offers and the freedom of choice, freedom of speech, and all those benefits of this society that we don't brag enough. We at WB we say that. We say that we are grateful for that because sometimes it just goes without saying, and Canadians are
भाई
quite modest
उनकी
about
सब्जियों का टेस्ट भी एक जैसा ही है कम
um, quite modest about showcasing that. We appreciate it. So let's go back to the resume. Keys on the resume: facelift. You're adapting, you're not exaggerating, you're not faking something that you don't have as a skill set, for example. You are aligning it, you like with Canadian reality, with the job posting you're selected as ideal position for you for this particular stage in life. Because the ladder, you're just in the beginning of the ladder, you don't need to be climbing too high. Happiness in life is typically not only to get to the top. Happiness, it could be, the ladder could be moving you to a very new discovery, like who you are and what you can do with your skill set and it's a good opportunity to rediscover yourself. So when you adopting the mindset that you're not diminishing, like yes, you're shortening your resume, you may be leaving some items behind. You don't want to show that you had internships 15 years ago in your university. You don't need to show, you don't need to say those unnecessary things that may not be relevant to a Canadian employer because they don't really know. Again, please adapt to the situation when Canadian employer may not know a particular company, a particular industry, or the position, how the position is called, things like that. So, and then finally, I want to say that ATS, application tracking system, is basically the rules or the name of the game. You want to have your resume adapted to that system. So I will go on the topics on formatting a little later, but it scans all resumes. Some like a portion of it gets to HR, and then HR vets it further, and then maybe 10 to 20 get to hiring manager at best. So critical to get skilled in customizing the ADS. And for one of the IWB participants, I basically gave her a little exercise, and I say, take this job posting, upload it to ChatGPT, get the a request to have 5 to 7 keywords to like most noted in that job posting. That means those 5 to 7 keywords you will need to inject in your resume for the ATS to capture your resume as a high match. So the exercise continued with, so you do 5, 7 keywords, ChatGPT spits it out for you, you know, and then you ask, here's my resume. Here's the position I'm applying for. This is the posting. You already gave it to him, to the chat. And then you say, please replace all appropriate words in my resume with those keywords that were in the posting. It takes 5 minutes. Yes, it will be a little bit misaligned. You take that and in simple form, go back to Word and do the resume. You will get a hang of it, how the process works, but at least in a very professional, and then you obviously in the ChatGPT, you ask them, leave everything else intact. Don't let the chat to fix it for you and assume things that don't need to be assumed. So that prompt engineering, I think we'll have a different session on that with IWB with Svetlana, which it just needs to be almost a workshop. Like let's fix it, and it will be hands-on kind of a session going forward. So
And I can participate with you guys.
for sure. Okay, so let's go on to the sections of the resume, starting from the top. Keep it simple and keep it local. In terms of the name, you can full name, but if you feel like you can be called a shorter name and you feel like already in Canada, something is more, it's easier for people to, let's say, pronounce. Let's just be realistic. You could, if you want to be called in a simpler way, state that in brackets. Because first of all, in addition to the name that may be long, you want to be called as opposed to Mila, or as opposed to, like, I don't want to give examples, it just doesn't come to me, but
Roxolana, my daughter is Roxolana. So most of the
so
people
you
cannot
could be
pronounce
Lana.
Roxolana
Like if
exactly.
that's what you feel comfortable with, trust me, you can keep it as long as you want. But if it's what works for you in the reality, like when you introduce yourself in the elevator to a neighbor, what do you say? You can use that. It's helpful, and to some people it's very appropriate.
Yeah,
Canadian
there's
phone,
Olga. There is a person on the phone
yeah,
on our webinar. Her name is Mali Hach. Mali, are you here with us?
yes, Mali is
Yeah, she yeah. I mean, you talk to her. She calls herself Mali. I call
exactly,
everybody by all the original name. I like it because it tells me the story of their culture. Mali Hach.
yes,
I love it. But in
yes,
reality, her name would be perfect because it's not easy to
yes.
pronounce, right?
Yes, Mali is with us, and we had something for everybody. We were trying to prepare maybe to collect some information today, so we'll get to that later. So let me
Okay, thank you.
continue. But Mali is a great example. So only if you feel comfortable. They don't have to, but you can request it. And in the very top of the resume, that thing, something in bracket actually captures the eye. Like it's just the eye is drawn to that. So you will a little stand out a little bit out of all the 7 names that picked out for by the recruiter to be seen by the hiring manager. So Canadian phone number, city, but not the postal code or never full address. Like not necessarily a bad thing, but if let's say some employers, some recruiters may consider the distance that you're willing to go for in order to be hired. You in Midtown Toronto, you can be hired by Mississauga, but there says how difficult it is. They know how difficult it is to commute. So don't give them that information. Don't let them to judge whether or not you are prepared to do the job well. Just keep it short and simple. City, Toronto, Ontario. If like you in Canada, you don't need to specify. If it's a megapolis, you don't need to specify where Toronto is. But if it's, let's say, the city can be in Saskatchewan, same city here, Cambridge, for example, is in every province, you may specify that. Professional email, obviously, no partyboy@gmail.com, like no things like that, right? Like you don't, or party girl, let's just say. Okay. LinkedIn profile, not really optional, and you can add it to the resume. Oh, by the way, how to put for ATS tracking, name, address, the contact information. What I put in the columns, don't put them horizontally. This is a new tip I learned recently. ATS scans from left to right. So not that it's going to sort of disadvantage you, but list the contact information in a column, not horizontally. Why?
Okay.
Because of the system reading it. So, and on the same topic, don't use columns. Don't do 1 and a 2. And it maybe look visually good for the human.
Appearing, yeah.
ATS will not pick it up. They may
Okay.
read the first column, they will not read the second. So if you put work experience and then education on the right-hand side, education may be not read at all, and your resume will be stored in the company's system for maybe future reference, because people, recruiters do call the previous applicants were not selected for the job, but maybe selected later. So let that full resume, full length of it stay in the system. I personally prefer all kinds of embellishments, like not embellishments, but improvements on formatting. But we need to be boring in the way we present the resume. Unfortunately, it may make the resume longer because you just use 4 lines for just the contact information, but maybe formatted so it's still in the column, like one list as opposed to 1 line. No personal
And we can
identifiers.
reduce the font size. We can reduce the font size and make it to the side. I
Yeah,
saw
yeah.
sample like that, but I was like making it the horizontal way. Yeah, sure.
No personal identifiers, no photos, no date of birth, no marital status. It's inappropriate in Canada, and don't let them to disadvantage. Like don't let them too much information. You stay as mysterious as possible until they see you at the resume, and then you can, like even there, I wouldn't actually specify how old or if you're married or not. So, and again, to the last point, no fancy layouts. I already told no columns, no text boxes. Unless you're a graphic designer who wants to show their own style, don't use the templates in Canva. Very colorful, beautiful. Don't. It's just not serves the purpose we're after. So leave it till when you want to make your first presentation for that employer, then you can go bunkers on with symbols and infographics, but not in the resume, okay? So when you start after the contact information, purpose is the position that you're after, or purpose or goal. You can say purpose or goal. Position title, and you could highlight it in a different color. Just this word for a different color so it stands out a little bit, but it doesn't go off to, like, it's not all colorful. One position you're after could be highlighted in, let's say it's black, but you can light it in blue or red. Very tasteful, and it still gets noticed if they have 5 resumes on the table and they can pick one. It just draws the eye to the different color, and you get picked up for the consideration maybe more often, or they will look at this a little bit longer than 5 minutes they have for each resume, for example. So 2-3 line resume tailored to a specific job. Again, that specific job, play with the position the posting, and see how you can have the position posting, each position posting has a description. So you take that, run through ChatGPT and say, how can I reshape or reword my position, my professional summary, to include the maximum number of words, keywords that were in the position that the company posted. You focused on transferable skills. For immigrant, is very important, not the job titles from your home country. You don't, unless it's very, very a direct correlation. The data analyst that you were back home, your data analyst here.
Project manager is here. So
Yes.
some titles are almost the same. Yeah.
So Canadian keywords from the industry, but from the industry in Canada. Nobody will understand, no Canadian employer will understand unless they're from the same country. What specifically you're referring to? Any abbreviations from home country, either unpack them full word or don't mention it in the full length. It doesn't, you can work with that. It's not needed, and unless it's an international company that it will benefit if you use the brand name, like the brand will stand out, use it, but buzzwords from the job post, buzzwords lingo from the posting, not from your previous experience. So avoid being overqualified. We have the risk, we always, it's always there. So we have to downplay our previous experience. We have to convert our job titles to those that may be like an equivalent. You know, most immigrants have the WES assessment, WES, World Educational Services. They only say equivalent to bachelor. They don't say equivalent to bachelor in the most prestigious top 10 university in India. They say equivalent to bachelor because bachelor is widely recognized, but everything else, the school of business of that university, of that campus, like don't not it's unnecessary. And the more white space on the resume, the more white space there is, it's easier for the eye to read it. You may be packing it with too much information. Let's just actually lose some weight, if you know what I mean, like lose that fluff. um, well, AI is to our rescue right now. They could simplify it, but actually keep your personality there. If you don't feel what ChatGPT spits out, it's not you. Change it and work with it. And that's one of the skills that you gotta have anyway. So, like while doing so, it's a great exercise how to use chat and AI, like all those tools now that we have at our disposal. Senior roles. If you are, if you were a manager back home, if you are a director, like I gave my example in the beginning. So what, I was a financial director for the publishing house before I left for Canada. Nobody at 29 will hire me as a financial director. I have no business in dictating how things should be run in the financial department in even small company here, because I don't have that experience. I cannot lead someone I don't think, I didn't feel like I had sort of enough, not that I didn't have confidence, to be honest with you, but I didn't know how things are run, and we need to
Affirmation.
learn
They
that.
call it affirmation because you need to
Yes.
affirm it from authority, that you gained authority
Yes.
from your experience. Yeah.
And
Understandable.
one of my first coaches in one of the agencies, Skills for Change, I still think of them fondly. She said, in your first day or week of at the job, you basically observe how they do it. You may be as smart or like 10 times smarter. You don't suggest a new agenda, like just don't observe it, because you don't know the undercurrents and why is it the way it is. Typically it could be improved and optimized. In Canada it's stable to the point that it's boring. But anyway, so for the first time, you don't want to impose, so to speak. So let's say instead of vice president, you led a cross-functional teams as a good example, but how you frame the vice president again, you maybe just become a manager as opposed to vice president. Avoid jargon and company names unless they're internationally known or could be researched. For small companies, or if you had your own business, ideally, if you can provide, you could provide the link to the website. That because if it's a big prominent company and the website is active, or at least it speaks like that's for outside of Canada experience. If the company could be searched and could be found, and they have any like version of their website in English, you can include that, but be consistent with then all the companies on your resume could be provided with the website. But that's just a tip that doesn't suit everybody. So but kind of with some caution there, if the company has a website, please provide it. If not, then leave it simple, leave it outside, and then outside of the resume. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the next work experience. I think I kind of already went over it. Reverse chronological order is preferred. Past 5 to 10 years of experience are critical. If you have more, be careful. Like it's even if you were data analyst in 2005, the tools have changed. It may be outdated unless you kept that experience and you grew in the same role. So unless the old work experience back home is directly related to the position, then use it, then convert it. Let's repackage it. It doesn't need to be chronological, but then you can use projects as a way to bring that experience from 15 years ago. If it's still relevant, you can still mention that, but package it in a project. Achievement bullet points, I think you know. Job descriptions, when it's a long list of function, try to maybe group them, include numbers and results. Even approximate metrics like led the team on a project of 10 million, blah, blah, blah. So it's something like that. So action verb, managed, implemented, increased, led thing. So all the action verbs as opposed to, well, maintain, like I don't want to go into like too deep into that. It's probably like when I work
So
with the resume specifically, I can see that what could be improved, but right now for the purposes of the presentation, it's too detailed. Customization techniques, use exact words from the job description, use the free tool that I'm showing here, highlight the Canadian international standards that they're familiar with them. If last time we had a student who studied accounting in UK, still outside of Canada, they use a different generally accepted accounting principles gap, but it's basically the basis of any accounting, so it could be used here. So generally recognized or internationally recognized standards will fly. However, if you're showing gap in a Canadian resume, that will on its own highlight the fact that it's not a Canadian resume. So unless they're looking for accountant in their London office, it may not be as good of a addition to the resume. So you need to be working towards the CPA or working towards replace that, Canadianize it. For less relevant roles or cases with when you have many employers, you can group it by function and call previous experience included. And you basically like how to package 10 years of experience instead of one page and go detailed. You can package it and make it project or just function, accounting, like, and so on and so forth, or project management or data analytics. It may not be relevant, the position may be way in the past, but you had that experience and it's a transferable skill, transferable function. In terms of education, list Canadian equivalencies. I mentioned Wes previously, equivalent to Canadian bachelor. Basically, you don't need to go too deep into what bachelor, like Bachelor of Science is enough, name of university is enough. You don't even need to mention the country if you want to downplay the country or regional sort of. So I think I put start business and hire yourself in an ideal role. It should be for work experience. So I'm working on a framework when you can really hire yourself in a role that you name who you want to be to fill any gaps. And that should be not in the educational, should be in the work experience. So you can add recent Canadian and North American courses, Coursera, Udemy, Google certificates, LinkedIn Learning. I would probably avoid kind of showcasing that. I did finish like project management certificate on the LinkedIn as a post. You can maybe make a post in your LinkedIn explaining what you learned and how you're going to apply it, or where you see the pain point that you're going to address. But sort of showcasing the certificate in itself as a post in LinkedIn, it may be too braggy to me, but you can list it in the profile, obviously. So take continuing education courses, micro credentials. Like I am at the college, in the college system, they try to come up with revenue streams, how to actually go like live through the reduced international students numbers right now, if you follow the news, how to come up with more opportunities to generate income. So they offer a lot of micro credentials, and it doesn't even need to say the word micro credential. It could be business BI analytics certificate. How long was the certificate? Not necessarily needed. When you speak of education, you put only year when you completed that. You don't need to put the month and the date and the month and the date of when you started and completed. You put the only year when you completed that. So the later you complete it, the fresher it looks, and it doesn't showcase the duration. If it's a 14 weeks course, you don't need to show that it's 14 weeks course. It could be as long as a year. Don't do that. It keeps the latest date of the completion is the go-to strategy, just to keep it fresher. More of those certificates, the better. You can Canadianize your resume, but just taking a certification. Canada is too big on education, too big. It's a whole industry that when it comes to international students, it's probably I remember the date, the statistic from a few years ago, 20 billion industry, and the third largest export. Education, Canada exports education. So we're all overeducated here, unfortunately. We are working on how to make it practical. So certification relevant to your field show adaptation and initiative. If you led the teams before, but you don't have PNP, for example, project management professional, or any regulator, like being even associated with the, let's say you're an accountant or a financial analyst or a career professional like HR specialist. Each profession like that will have their own association. I would probably join as an associate member just to have that abbreviation on the resumes, knowing that, first of all, you'll pick up a few valuable things. Secondly, you will network with those people. They always look for articles to be published. They also look for some, like they share their newsletter, and then you will see what the industry is breathing and living at that point. So join those certifications. If you're working towards a specific designation, such as, I don't know, accounting, you could be in law, a professional engineer, any certified trade. You could mention that because it makes it like there is a Canadian content in it. And I already talked about organizations. Okay. Skills and optional sections. Again, don't go too deep, too broad on that. Tailor to each application. Scan the job posting for exact skill phrases. I'm kind of repeating it. Hard skills like software, tools, and languages. ITS has to pick it up. Like let it do that. But the soft skills, unless it's supported by an example somewhere, you will have a chance to do that when you have an interview call. But listing that you are detailed oriented bookkeeper, any bookkeeper should be detail oriented, kind of goes without saying. So use like favor the white space as opposed to saying that you're a great person. We have a humanitarian assumption that everybody is good. Optional sections such as volunteering, projects, and languages, if it boosts your profile, do it. Volunteering is valuable, and in some cases, especially for students, when volunteering is probably the only instance when they had a Canadian work experience, you may not mention volunteering. You may go in the work experience if you were actually doing the function, not shadowing or not really like you could be assisting, but it's a job function and you could be paid. And unfortunately, some internships are unfortunately unpaid. But if it's a volunteering or internship that is not paid, it's in my opinion, it's a work experience. And instead of doing it and volunteering at the sort of second half of the resume, move it to the top and name it a project. The fact that it was volunteering, there wasn't a supervisor there. There was someone who can give a reference for you. So again, treat the volunteering, even if you're looking for it, and when you actually have done something for an organization and the company, treat it as experience and present it as experience. There's no harm in that. You can always confess if need be, if there is an interviewer asking you, tell me what you did here in this role. You can say, in this role, I've done this. Will it come up as a volunteering? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on how much time you spend. But if it was from 9 to 5, you were actually doing the job, it's more of a job than, so it's unpaid. If it was volunteering, let's say you spent 1 or 2 hours fixing some database for some company, and that's for several years, that is more of a volunteer. Like let's say you maintain a database for a garden center or a community center, and you've done it for several years. That's more volunteering, could be noted as volunteering. So I think I'm gonna overdid it a little bit, Svetlana, today.
No, it's amazing.
But
Thank you so much.
again, customizing,
I'm not
formatting.
talking. I'm not talking,
Okay.
so I'm trying to push myself not to talk because you're saying it all. I want to
No,
I
conquer
see, I
this,
see.
I'm
what you're
enjoying it.
saying.
I'm learning it myself. So I
Yeah,
think it's
yeah.
Thank
excellent.
you.
I mean, those things we assume that people know, or it's oh, what's resume? It's a piece of paper. It's a piece of art. That's how people they look at you. That's your selling value proposition. And if it's
I'm
not
paid
done
money.
in an excellent way, I mean, that's why people they're not getting ahead, right? So
Yeah.
I reached to a point that I'm paying money so I can sit with a person and talk like I'm talking, like Olga's talking. Because I'm like, how can I minimize, how can I make a cover letter in the cover letter, describe myself in a small way, sell myself, then inside the summaries, then inside the function. So I was building all this up. Yeah.
so you found it
And
useful. That's beautiful, Mohammed. Thank you.
I have 3 of CVs.
Yeah,
It's great.
likewise.
That's great.
We'll ask Mona, we'll ask Molly, and we'll ask Oksana if they find it useful in a second. Yeah, let's finish it off. We'll stop recording and
Yes,
we'll
a
take
few
some questions.
resources. Again, Svetlana, I'm assuming that it may be shared with, like the presentation could be shared. I've done a little bit of updates to the previous version, so I might just share the latest with you for sharing and fix that addition that whoever wants to join, like I welcome to connect. I do find time. Apologies for not really replying right away, but I value your bravery actually, because I'm someone you don't know or didn't know until now. And then it takes some guts to actually say and knock on the door saying, Olga, you know, you're busy, or I was presented as very busy. I am, it's true, but I do appreciate the bravery. It does take some coming out of your shell, and I do want you to, like, we want to open that to see the pearl that's inside. Okay, so that's
Thank
on that
you.
happy note. I'm gonna wrap up my
Thank you,
spiel.
thank you. We'll take a couple of questions from Mona, please. Though those people, especially who contributed to the course by paying for the value, will get more out of Olga from her wisdom of dealing with newcomers, Canadianizing the experience and bridging them to the successful career. But Mona, we'll take your question.
Thank you so much for this presentation. It was very, very useful for me,
Mhm.
because as Svetlana said, I am an interesting case because I have I have both countries' careers, effectively careers. Back home, I have a long career, more than 10 years in engineering. Here, more than 15 years in community service, and now I'm looking for a different, let's say, for a career to combine both. And I'm getting stuck sometimes, how to do my resume, and seeing so many things. I know sometimes they are the resume are scanned by ATS. I didn't do it, is that thing left to right. I didn't have, I didn't knew it in which way these scan the resumes. Thank you so much for this information and for all the informations. Yeah, what I like to mention, because now I'm looking for engineering, one of which I have back home experience. Yeah, and in my experience in from 96 to 2006, many years ago, and I put these years in my resume and back home, and I find a little bit being a barrier. I don't know how to incorporate to not be.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
say.
it is. I know.
Again, do you like just from the off the top of my head, what I feel that have you checked with the Association with Professional Engineers if they have if you can claim the accreditation? All of your experience from back home, do you know the steps that
Yes.
you need to take in order to get accredited? Not necessarily needed for the day-to-day job for a middle-sized company, but because you want to become current in the engineering again, because community services industry is way like
Wider.
far away, like they're on a
Mhm.
different
Different,
sides. Like
yes.
for example, my resume also, and I had to drop all of the not even pre-Canada. I had to drop experience from my like when I was working for Canadian Tire and then Canadian Tire Bank, because my goal pre 2008 was to go into risk management. I love data, love analytics, but it happened that the crisis happened, then a couple of kids happened to me. I chose it, but I felt outdated for analytics and risk management, and I actually chose not to go to the job that seemed high paid, but the hours that the industry was requesting wasn't suiting me as a woman. So what I actually how I convinced myself to not go to banking again is that I took the salary, and instead of dividing it by the